We're going to jump right into this show. This is episode 1. We're going to talk about Pedro Martinez. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Born October 25th, 1971, 5'11", from the Dominican Republic. Played for 5 teams, 1992, 2009, and the Red Sox, 1998, 2004. So what are your thoughts on Pedro?
He was probably the greatest pitcher I ever saw in my lifetime.
Yep.
He won over 20 games a couple times in his career, especially 1999 was probably his best season. He won the Triple Crown that year. He led the league in wins, strikeouts, and ERA. His performance in the All-Star game that year was something that stands out because he 5 strikeouts. He struck out the first 5 guys he faced.
Yep.
And some of those guys, he struck out Barry Larkin, who was a Hall of Famer,
Right.
Larry Walker, a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Obviously Mark McGuire, but
Sammy
Sosa,
Yep,
Jeff
amazing.
Bagwell. He
Right.
struck out Jeff Bagwell, who's also a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Obviously McGuire and Sosa never got into the Hall of Fame because of the whole steroid
Right.
PED scandal around them. What else? He was his final start with the Red Sox was his only start in the World Series with them, which I kind of wish they kept him, but they just kind of let him walk after that World Series.
Yeah.
That was a disappointment for me.
Yeah.
And then he went through injuries after he signed that contract with the Mets.
Right. Yep.
And that was tough to watch.
Yeah. So his record: 219 wins, 100 losses. Career ERA 2.93, 3,154 strikeouts.
Which is amazing.
Talk
I think
about
that's
that.
the best. I think that's amazing. I mean, growing up, just whenever his time to pitch, it was like a big spectacle around the family. Everybody had to stop what they're doing just to watch this guy pitch.
Yep.
I remember it seemed like he would have like 2-3 strikeouts every single inning. It was fun to watch.
Yep. He was kind of like, his career was long, but he was kind of like a Sandy Koufax. So dominant in that, say 5-6 year period.
It was mostly with the Red Sox. That's what he was mostly
Yep.
known for. I think people forget he was with the Expos because the Expos were kind of, what's the word? Nobody really paid much attention to the Expos, which is why they're no longer in Montreal. They're moving to DC, but I don't know. I mean, the Expos had some very good players growing up, but they could never keep any of them.
Oh yeah, Andre Dawson, the kid,
one.
Gary Carter.
Yep, Gary Carter. He had Larry Walker for a little bit of time. Pedro was there for a brief time.
You know what I found out researching this show? I didn't know or forgot that Pedro won a Cy Young when he was with the Expos.
He did. It was his last season.
1997. Yep.
But I remember the '97 season because he was a free agent at the end of the season, and the Expos were like they were a small market team. They knew they weren't going to be able to afford to keep him. So I remember they were shopping around trying to find out who they could keep because he was a free agent at the '98 coming. So originally the Yankees were trying to get him, but the Yankees refused to give up Derek Jeter.
Oh, wow.
I remember that was who they were going to get. That's who the Expos wanted.
That's not going to happen.
So it never was going to. So the Yankees were kind of, because at that time Jeter had just won a World Series. What was it? World Series Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
They knew he was going to be something. So.
Yeah.
And the Red Sox had a choice. They needed an ace because they didn't have an ace after Clemens left.
Yeah.
So they gave up 2 pitching prospects to get him, who at the time they thought were going to be the next great Roger Clemenses, but it never happened with the two guys they gave up. So they got Pedro, then as soon as they got him, they gave him they signed him that same exact day they traded for him.
Wow. Yep.
I forget how much, but it was like 7 years for forget how much it was.
Yeah, because he won 3 Cy Youngs: 1997 with the Expos, and 1999 and 2000 with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Well, you say those are his glory.
99,
seasons.
especially 99, because The Red Sox had entered '99. They had just lost Mahan to free agency.
Oh,
So
there's a name from the past. He was
they
good.
didn't have their offense was basically going to be built around Nomad.
Yep.
And Pedro just came. I mean, he just finished his first year with the Red Sox, so he comes into his second year. And I remember they were destined. Everybody was like, "Oh, this team's going to win the World Series."
Yep.
Especially the way that Pedro pitched in '99, because to me that season strikeout, he had over 300 strikeouts that season in 1999. So that's what stands out to me. But he won over 20 games. It was probably one of the best seasons of a sophomore pitcher.
Yeah, because he was 3-time strikeout leader, 1999, 2000, and 2002.
Yes. Well, 2001, he was injured for most of the season.
Oh, okay.
So that's why he was never up. I forget how
Yeah,
many
what did he
games.
have? Like a shoulder?
It was his shoulder. That's when he
Yeah.
started having shoulder
Right,
issues. At the
yeah.
time, it was in 2001.
Yeah. And 1999, he was a triple crown in pitching.
The trip because he led the league in wins, ERA, and strikeouts that
Yup,
year, which is
yup.
how the pitchers win the Triple Crown. But I'm still disappointed to this day because he was the runner-up for the MVP that year,
Oh, wow.
and he didn't end up getting it because they was like, oh, they can't give an MVP to a
It's a
pitcher.
pitcher, you're right. It's very rare.
So instead, they gave it to Ivan Rodriguez from the Rangers, who was
Yup.
the catcher for the Rangers at the time. But it's still, to me, I thought Pedro's 1999 season was the best I ever saw from a baseball player.
Yeah, because very rare where they give the pitcher the MVP because they
They
figure
usually-
they're going to get the Cy Young.
Well, because the pitcher, they don't play every single day. They only
Right.
pitch once every 5 days.
Didn't Eckersley get MVP, but that was when he was a reliever with the A's?
he got the Cy Young Award. He got both. He got a Cy Young and MVP.
I could see that if you're a reliever MVP. I could see you get an MVP if you're a starter, if you deserve it.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
1999. I thought Pedro should have won the MVP in 1999,
Yep.
but it didn't happen.
Yeah. And he was a 5-time major league leader, ERA leader.
He was.
97, 99, 2000, 2002, and 2003. You know what's interesting I found out? I know you probably know this. He was a minor league player of the year in 1991, but he wasn't really highly regarded.
He wasn't because he was a short guy. So nobody. So when he was with the Dodgers, they didn't think he was
Right.
going to be able to be a starter because he was only 5'11".
Right.
So for his first couple of years with the Dodgers, he was primarily a relief pitcher, and
Yep.
he did decent as a relief pitcher. But it wasn't until he got to the Expos that he became one of the top pitchers at this time.
When he was with the Dodgers, was he able to throw that heat?
No, it wasn't until he got to the Expos because they were small. At the time when the Dodgers gave up on Pedro, they were looking for a
Yep.
second baseman
Yeah.
because they had just lost their second baseman to free agency. So they made the move with the Expos to get some speedy. Can't think of the
Yeah.
guy's name, but he was a speedy second baseman. They were
Yeah.
looking for a second baseman. It was when he got to the Expos. He actually worked with Joe Kerrigan, who became
Yeah.
was his pitching coach in Montreal and in Boston.
Yep.
And it was Joe Kerrigan who realized that this guy's going to be something
Wow,
special to
yep.
watch.
So he never really put on 8 pounds of muscle from. It was
He
basically
never
the
did.
same
He was
kind of
he was the same kind, but when it wasn't until he got to Montreal when Joe Kerrigan was his pitching
Yeah.
coach.
that he. Yeah.
And then when Joe Kerrigan came to Boston to be the pitching coach, he convinced the Red Sox to go after Pedro Martinez.
Right. Wow. Yeah, because Pedro reminds me of Doug Flutie. I'll tell you why. Because Doug Flutie was 5'9" and 3/4", as he
Oh,
would
that's
say.
right, yes,
But you
yeah.
know what the thing was? He had hands like he was 6'5". And we know the story with Pedro's big hands.
He had long fingers. That's why he was
Right.
able to throw his fastball, curveball.
Right.
His curveball, I thought, was his best pitch.
Yeah. And they talk about his changeup.
His changeup,
Yeah,
his changeup was pretty good too.
Yeah, because you're waiting for that 93 mile an hour, and then something drops in at 84.
Oh, exactly. But I thought his curveball was his. I thought it was his signature pitch was his curveball.
Wow. Yep. And then he played for 5 teams: Dodgers, Expos, Red Sox, Mets, and the Phillies.
The Phillies, it was a brief time. It was his
Yeah.
last. He was a mid-season pickup. He signed up
Oh, okay.
with the Phillies. He didn't begin the year playing, and then the Phillies were looking for a pitcher. So they had
Yeah.
signed Pedro halfway through the season, and he helped them get to the World Series.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? He played for 5 teams, 4 National League teams.
He did,
So
yes.
he was hitting all those
But
years.
he's only one of 3 pitchers to win the Cy Young in both leagues.
Wow. Yup. Yeah, I didn't know that.
So
And of course, he helps break the curse in 2004.
He did, yes.
First time the Red Sox won it since 1918. And we got to talk a little about Theo Epstein helping break in the curse. with the Red Sox, 2004. And we were talking early, he also helped the Cubs.
He left the Cubs, yes, in 2016.
16, and they had the curse of the Billy Goat.
The Billy Goat, yes.
And they beat Cleveland.
They beat Cleveland 7 games in 2016.
Yep, and that was the first time they won the World Series since 1908. So you got to give Theo a lot of respect.
I think when Theo officially retires, he'll be considered for a Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah,
I'm kind of curious if he ends up going to Cleveland because they haven't won since the 40s.
Might as
so
well.
Break
You're
the
right.
curse.
Yep.
But Theo's an interesting one because when he first he resigned as his position with the Red Sox and then came back.
Oh, that's right.
But it was around the time when Johnny Damon was with the Red Sox. It was when Theo resigned, the Red Sox lose Damon to the Yankees, and Theo came back.
Yeah. And where did Theo come from?
Theo grew up in Boston, but he grew up as a Red Sox fan. I think he was living in California at the time. The Red Sox made him as a...
Because he's big into the analytics.
Yes,
the Bill James theories.
Well, originally the Red Sox were trying to get Billy Beane.
Right.
And then Billy Beane didn't want to. He declined the opportunity to come to the Red Sox.
How he did, why he did that.
So they have a movie based on
right.
it.
He said he wanted to, it wasn't about the money.
No, he wanted to win a world championship. So I thought when he was going to come to Boston,
right.
I thought he was going to be the guy because Billy Beane was like the top. Besides Brian Cashman, Billy Beane was like one of the top executives.
Yeah, and I think Moneyball, not just a great sports movie, that movie's a masterpiece.
It is a good movie, yes.
Because it's not just sports, it's business, and there's a lot, I think, and I've seen it 15 times.
Okay.
That's a masterpiece, Moneyball.
So
we wrapped, any further thoughts on Pedro? Because I know he's one of your favorites.
I wish the Red Sox kept him, but there was a contract dispute after 2004. He thought he deserved more than what the Red Sox were going to give him. And the Mets... He didn't want to play for George Steinbrenner because I think the Yankees were trying to go after him at the time. So he's like, oh no, he went to the Mets because he always called the Yankees his big daddy.
Wow. Hey, what do you remember about that game? Was Pedro's pitcher with Grady Little? What happened in that game? Because I went to bed, I had to be up at 5 in the morning.
Well, I originally, because I remember Pedro was coming, that was in 2003. There was the elimination game. Both teams, the winner of the game was going to win the pennant.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so Grady Little had, I forget who was warming up in the bullpen, but I know Pedro was getting near the end. He was out of gas.
Right.
So, okay, I remember seeing Grady Little coming out, and I'm like, okay, he's going to pull Pedro because he has 2 guys warming up. Not sure what the conversation was, but he decided to keep Pedro Martinez in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if Pedro convinced him or what happened.
Yeah.
And then the Yankees end up rallying from, I think they were down like 2 runs, and they decided the Yankees came back to rally. They pulled Pedro, then Grady Little pulls Pedro. And obviously we know what happened then. We know that the Yankees tie the game. Tim Wakefield gives up the home run to Aaron Boone. The Yankees go to the World Series. Yankees lose the World Series that year to the Marlins.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And Grady Little was that was the last game he managed with the Red Sox.
Yeah,
he was fired shortly after.
A lot of controversy.
There's a lot of controversy. To this day, it's still talked about.
So that's gonna wrap up talking about Pedro, one of the all-time greats. You give me a rotation with Pedro, Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, and throw in.
And don't forget some of those guys from the Braves of the '90s.
Oh, unbelievable! We're gonna talk about them after this. We're gonna talk a little bit about the 2 big scandals I think in baseball: the 1919 Black Sox scandal, shoeless Joe Jackson suspended and all that, but the 2019 Astros Washington scandal. But here's the thing: I looked on online and I searched it. Biggest baseball scandals, top 10. You know that they didn't put that Astros in the top 10. Now, why do you think that?
I honestly don't think it ever happened. I mean, because teams steal signs all the time.
Yeah, wow.
All you gotta do if you think of it, because the catchers they put their fingers down and what because each pitcher they have they depending on how many pitchers they have, the catchers know what pitches the pitcher can throw. So they have like say 1's for a fastball, 2's for a curveball, or 3's a changeup. So obviously the catcher, when they crush down, they're gonna put down 1, 2, 3 fingers to figure out what pitch the pitcher's gonna throw. So the opposing manager can very easily let his base runner know they're gonna throw a curveball in this situation, or a fastball, or But I mean, they stealing signs is a part of baseball.
It is,
so
but they were saying
it doesn't make sense. So.
But they were saying there was more to it than stealing signs. Microphones under their uniforms, people like banging drums or something to. They were saying there was more to it. Now,
there might have been, but I don't know a whole. I mean, I just think it was more like just stealing signs. I I think people were upset because the Astros had won, and I don't think they wanted the Astros to win that year.
Yeah, because didn't the Astros win the year before?
They did win the year before.
And they were going for back-to-back.
And no team has won back-to-back World Series since the Yankees in 2000.
Wow. But here's the thing. Washington won 4 in Houston.
They did, yes.
So to me, it's like that was karma. If you were cheating, oh, you lost 4 at home while you were cheating at home. If. So like I said, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. But you're a bigger baseball fan than me. You say it wasn't as much as they say.
I think it's the whole. I think the scandal is the same thing with the steroids of the.
Oh yeah.
Because no one really knows what really happened between the scandal or the steroids.
Yeah.
There's no proof of it.
Yeah, you know what's frustrating? Some people, they'll say, oh, he was on steroids, he's not getting in. Where others, they kind of were on steroids, but they got in. So
that's a whole nother. That's another discussion for another day.
It really is. It's a tough one. But I just find it interesting, the 2 big scandals, 1919 and 100 years later, 2019.
The 1919 I can kind of see because that started the whole gambling not being a part of baseball.
Right.
That's why Pete Rose never going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I didn't know that Shoeless Joe Jackson won a ring in 1917, and he hit 408 in his first full year in 1911. Unbelievable.
Well, that's because it was they considered that time the dead ball.
Yeah.
That was when home runs were not really a big part. It wasn't until Babe Ruth came along that home runs became a huge part of the game. But home runs were very rare at the time Shoeless Joe Jackson was playing.
Okay, let's switch to your Braves. This is a big Braves fan. Well, World Series titles, 1914, 1957, and 1995. National League pennants, 1957, 1958, 1991, 1992, 1995, 1996, 1999. So talk about those Braves, all those pennants. And I think, hey, they got a championship.
At least did they get a championship? The 95, obviously, I think there's some questions about that because the season started short. It started later because of the strike from the previous year. But I mean, they still won the World Series regardless. I mean, obviously with Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine, you got John Smoltz, you got Chip and Andrew Jones on those teams. But I mean, I think the problem that happened with the Braves was, I think they put too much pressure on themselves to try to win multiple years, and they just couldn't.
Yeah.
For some reason, whatever it was, they just could never win in October.
Right. When they went to the World Series in 1991 and 1992, who beat them?
Was it the Blue Jays? I think in '92.
Oh,
I think
that was
the
a
Blue
good
Jays
ball club.
might have been '92.
They won,
91 was
they won back-to-back. Oh, the Twins were
91
good.
was the Twins. '92, I think, was the Blue Jays.
Right, that would have been their first one because the Blue Jays
The
won
Blue Jays.
back-to-back. All right, they lost to some good teams.
They did.
And in 1995, they beat.
'95, they beat Cleveland in 6 games. That was their only World Series in all those years. They beat Cleveland. Cleveland was close to winning the World Series a couple of times.
They had a good ball club.
They did.
Yeah.
Cleveland had their offense. Cleveland's offense in the '90s was in their pitching.
Tommy. Oh, they were good.
Manny, who else would I think?
Manny Ramirez.
Alan Baines was there for a little bit.
Oh yeah, Baines. The second base, Alomar. They were stacked.
They had some very good players in there.
And then the Braves go to the World Series in 1996.
They lost to the Yankees in '96. That was the beginning of the Yankees dynasty in the late '90s.
Oh, okay.
They lost to the Yankees that year. I think it was 6 games.
Yep.
But I know Jim Lewis was a
classic.
pain. He was never really. I mean, he was a good offensive player, but it wasn't until October that he really.
That was Jim Lewis. Yeah. He's a New York legend.
He's a legend.
He really is. Now, how about 1999?
'99, they lost to the Yankees. They were swept in the World Series by the Yankees. '99 was a tough year for them because I don't even think they ever led in that series.
Yep.
They were swept in '99 from the Yankees.
Yeah, the Braves, 9 straight Eastern Division titles.
14 straight.
Just dominating that. 14. Yeah. I got 14. All right, and the Bobby Cox gets his ring, 1995. Yes. 14 Eastern Division titles. And,
well, Bobby Cox is a Hall of Famer too.
Well, I'm glad he got a ring.
Oh, at least he was able to get at least one. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
I think if the Braves didn't win at least one, people would still be like, how come the Braves could never win?
Yeah.
I mean, they win at least one.
I'm glad Bobby Cox got a ring because in sports, hey, get a ring like Drew Brees got a ring.
Oh, yes.
Aaron Rodgers got a ring. Just get that one ring. I mean, it's better than the Vikings.
If you're Yogi Berra, he got 10.
10, yeah, right. Yeah. So I know you're frustrated as a Braves fan. Well, I agree with you. You would think you could get 2 or 3 rings with all those division titles.
Well, the 1998 team, I thought should have won the World Series.
Yeah.
But obviously no one's going to beat because I mean, when you compare it, because obviously the Yankees in '98 won the World Series, but the Braves they had a great team in '98. I think they lost to the Padres, who got to the World Series that year. But
Yeah.
I think the '98 team stands out that the team that should have won, but they didn't win.
Yeah. And like I said, so 9 straight division, and let's talk about that Brave staff. Because I didn't know that. When Maddox went 19-2, you said that season started late.
It started late because baseball had gone on strike in '94.
Right.
And '94, '94 was supposed to be a great year in '94.
Yeah.
That was the year Cal Ripken Jr. was supposed to break
Oh, okay.
the games, the record straight game, but it didn't happen until '95 because of the '94 strike. But yeah, I think the '95 season started like May or late April.
Yeah. So you remember how many games they missed?
I think they missed about 30 games in
Wow.
'95
So
because
still-
they were still because '94 when they went on strike in August of '94
Yeah.
or July, I think it was in either July or August of '94. It canceled the entire playoffs,
Yeah.
and they were still going into strike going into the '95 season.
Yeah, because when I saw that Maddox
But-
19-2, wow,
I
that's
think
impressive.
I think if there was no strike in '95, the baseball was still not on strike in '95. I think Maddox would have won easily 23 games.
Yeah, yeah,
Or 24.
Yeah,
But
because-
he missed about 5 starts that year because of the short season.
yeah. Because like
So
I said,
I think that '95 would have been probably one of the better years.
Yeah.
By a pitcher.
you know where he's from?
Maddox.
Yeah.
He's from Georgia.
Oh, I thought he was from Las Vegas.
So is it Vegas?
Yeah,
One of them,
yeah,
one of
because
them.
I lived in Las Vegas, yeah. Because I know he lives in, and of course, Smoltz, Glavin, and
Well,
Wallers.
well,
Yeah,
Smoltz
that's
is kind of an interesting one because he began as a starter, then he became a closer, and then
Wow,
then he
yeah.
returned to a starter again, and he still
Yeah.
was, regardless of what he was doing, he was still.
Oh, yeah,
He was probably the hardest thrower out of the three.
Yep, yep.
Was Smoltz. I
Oh,
remember
for sure.
he played briefly. He had a brief stint with the Red Sox and Cardinals.
Yep,
But I mean, he was at the end of his career by that time, so he wasn't
yeah.
anything great with either one of them. But
All right, and how about Glavin? Total pro.
Glavin was probably one of the better left-handers
He was.
that I ever saw. I mean, I believe he was from Boston originally. I think when he left the Braves to go to the Mets, I know the Red Sox were trying to get him, and they
Yep.
couldn't figure out a contract to bring him into, so he ended up going with the Mets.
Now, when Maddox pitched for the Cubs, how did he do there? Did he have, 18-game season?
I don't remember because I was too young to remember,
Yeah,
but I know
'cause
he
I don't
was.
remember him with the Cubs.
He had 2 different stints. He started his career with the Cubs, then went to the Braves, and then
Yeah.
went back to the Cubs.
Yeah.
I remember his second stint with the Cubs, but obviously he was better known as a Brave because
Oh, yeah.
when he was elected to the Hall of Fame, they were trying to figure out is he going to go with the Cubs or the Braves. So
Yeah.
he went in with the Braves, but I think people thought he should have gone in with both
Yeah. Because
because he was basically as dominating with the Cubs as he was with the Braves.
right. But he didn't get 300 wins, did he?
Maddox said yes.
He did,
He
because
did.
that's hard to do these days with all
These
the
days
relievers.
it is now because.
But I didn't know he got 300 good.
Yeah, he got 300. He's probably going to be like one of the last pitchers
It
to get
is.
300 wins.
Because look how dominant Pedro was. And
Yeah, well,
he had 200.
I think it wasn't for the injuries, he probably would have had 300.
Yep, it's tough with 300.
It's
not
especially
like
now.
now
because-
you're out in 5 innings.
Well, to me now, I think they baby the pitches too much in
Yeah.
baseball now.
Yeah. And, well, we're talking about the Braves. Got to talk a little about Henry Aaron. He won a ring in 1957. He was also National League MVP in 1957. 755 home runs, 3,771 hits, RBIs, 2,297, and a career average 305. Imagine being a power hitter and hitting over 300.
Oh yeah, that's like very rare now.
Yeah,
to do
oh
that.
yeah. So, and 2-time batting champ, Henry Aaron, 56 and 59.
I
You know,
thought
so-
I thought he went 2 of them.
And you know what Henry Aaron's Braves did that you guys did also? The Braves won it all in 57 and went back to the World Series in 58 and lost.
And they lost.
You guys won in 95, went back in
And
96
96
and
got lost, yes.
defending your championship. And so any other, wrapping up about your Braves?
I mean, I kind of wish I could see Hank Aaron play. I mean, I only saw
Yep.
videos, but obviously he was before
Yeah.
But I think he was one of the greatest players ever.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, he just passed away recently too, I
Yeah,
believe.
class act too, and it's amazing, a power hitter, 2-time batting
Yeah,
champion.
exactly.
You know, just so that, hey, you guys got a great history with the Braves. It isn't something you started as the Boston Braves. Then you
Yes,
went to
yes,
Milwaukee.
exactly. And then they went to Atlanta. I don't think Hank Aaron was with. I don't know if they were in Atlanta at the time Hank Aaron was playing.
Yeah,
I don't believe they were.
yeah. Now let's talk a little about Babe Ruth. And you know when we talk about Babe Ruth, I always bring up he won 3 rings as a pitcher with the
Yes.
Red Sox. He had 94 wins as a pitcher, 2.28 ERA, 7-time world champion. So he also won 4 championships with the Yankees. My point about Babe Ruth is the GOAT of GOATs, and I'll tell you why. Because he was a pitcher, and then
And he was an outfielder.
that would be like Wayne Gretzky winning 3 championships as a goalie and then going on and breaking all the offensive records. So as far as the GOATs, Babe Ruth is the GOAT, Tom Brady in football, Michael Jordan, and Wayne Gretzky. But some people say maybe it might be Bill Russell, the GOAT in basketball also. But as far as Babe Ruth, do you agree with that? He's the GOAT of GOATs because of that?
I do, because everybody's heard the name Babe Ruth. Even
Yeah.
if you're not a baseball fan, everybody has heard about the name at some point.
Yeah. And because I used to like watching documentaries about him, he wanted to be a manager so bad, and couldn't get an opportunity, especially from the Yankees.
No, I don't think he ever.
But you would think a lower team would say, just for the sales.
Well, even like a minor league team, I think he had a chance, and I think he turned down a minor league
right, but
chance to manage.
I know, but minor leagues, Babe Ruth, you'd think a team in the bottom of the standing would say, let's bring him in just for ticket sales.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So there had to be something going on there. I'm not saying collusion, but so what? He we know how he used to party, Babe Ruth.
We know, yes.
So
I don't think
what?
If George Steinbrenner
he
owned
would
the
have
Yankees
hired
at the time, he wouldn't have approved it.
Right, yeah, he was, and Babe Ruth had a World Series record from 1918. It lasted till 1961 when Whitey Ford broke it. In the 1918 World Series, the Babe pitched 29 and a third scoreless innings. So he was on his way to the Hall of Fame as a pitcher.
Back then, teams only carried maybe 3 or 4 pitches.
Yep.
Which is hard for everybody to think of how could a pitcher throw 500-600 innings a season now, because they were playing 160 something games. And it's like, just because of all the relief pitchers we see in the game today, it's like, how could a pitcher go out there and pitch almost every single day? It did happen back in those days.
Yep. Okay, now we're going to switch to one of your favorite players, and mine too, Ken Griffey Jr., one of the greats. What are your thoughts on him?
I still wish if he took the chance to either go to New York or Boston, he probably would have won a World Series.
Yep.
But he didn't want to play. Obviously, he didn't want to play for George Steinbrenner because he didn't like George Steinbrenner.
Yep.
He didn't want to come to Boston. He had an opportunity, and
Wow.
I think it was in '90. I know the '90 when he was approaching free agency. The Seattle knew they weren't going to be able to keep him.
Yep.
And the Red Sox had just lost Mogul on the free agency, and there was some talk about him coming to Boston.
Yep.
And he didn't want to play for. He claimed Boston was a racial city, so
Yeah,
he didn't want to
okay.
play. He didn't like playing in Boston.
Yep.
So I was excited. I was maybe 10, 11 years old at the
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
But I think he would have broke Hank Aaron's record had it not been for his injuries in
Yeah.
after around the early 2000s.
Now, a lot of those injuries, the way he played, crashing into walls. And,
Oh yeah, he won, was it 10 Gold Gloves, 10,
Yeah.
12 Gold Gloves. Every year he was in the All-Star game or
Yeah.
home run derby every single year.
Yep. No, he's one of the ultra great. And I wrote down here, don't forget Ken Griffey Sr., because he was on the Big Red Machine.
He was, yes.
So the family, they're going to ring in the family, maybe 2, because they went back to back. But Ken Griffey Jr., and he burst on the scene.
He did. I still think he would have had like 800 home runs had it not been
Wow.
for his injuries.
Yep.
I think it was his knees that started giving out on him in the
Yeah.
early. When he got to Cincinnati, because I think he grew up in Cincinnati, so when he went back home,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pressure on him because Cincinnati wasn't a great team when he got traded there.
Yep.
So there was a lot of pressure on him to carry that team.
Is that ballpark in Seattle, is that a tough park to hit home runs out of?
They used to play in the Kingdom, which was a dome
Oh,
stadium
okay.
when Griffey was there.
So that a dome,
when
yeah.
when they traded Griff, because baseball was saved in '95
Yep.
when Seattle beat the Yankees in the playoffs, and Griffey is seen running around the bases and sliding the home
Yeah.
plate to win the series. But that's when Edgar Martinez hit that double in '95 that saved baseball in Seattle when Griffey scored. Seattle was going to move to Tampa Bay. They weren't even going to stay in Seattle. So when they won,
Yeah.
when baseball was saved in Seattle because of that moment, they were able to build a new stadium. So I think it started in
Okay.
'97, '98.
Yep.
So when Seattle traded Griffey, I don't even think they were even in Seiko Field at the time.
Yeah. Now, Edgar Martinez, designated
He was a
hitter.
designated
Do you
hitter.
think he's a Hall of Famer?
He is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I still think he is.
He is. And you know who else was a great hitter, but he was played the field too? I loved him, Paul Molitor.
He's a Hall of Famer too.
Paul Molitor had that a swing. It was like a machine.
Yeah, yeah.
And Edgar Martinez, pure hitter.
He was actually the if Edgar Martinez never got in the Hall of Fame, I don't think Paul Molitor would be in because
Right,
he was
yeah.
like one of the first DHs
He was.
to get in.
Yeah. Edgar Martinez was pure hitter. Paul Molitor, I love him. Paul Molitor won rings with the Twins and Toronto.
Toronto, yes, that's right, Toronto.
Yeah, so he was just a class act. Well, I want to talk a little about Ted Williams hitting 406. All these years, and that was in 1941. All these years later, no one's hit over 400.
There was Tony Gwynn came close
Yup.
one season. I think it was 393, 394. He hit one year.
Yep. And the
But
other one I remember, George Brett was.
Oh, George Brett was flirting with it for a little bit.
Right, but so is that 406 kind of like Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points, where it's going to be
Kind of because
tough?
it's tough.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know why it's so tough to hit 400,
Right.
but it just is.
And you would think since 1941 someone would do it.
Well,
but
the
maybe,
closest one the closest one since then is Tony Gwynn.
Oh, he was.
He had like 393
Yeah.
or 397 one year. I forget what year it was.
Yeah.
But,
The thing about Tony Gwynn and him and Boggs, I call him Boggsy, they came up around the same time. And before that, a good batting average was like 310.
310.
But then when Boggs and Gwynn came on the scene, all of a sudden it was 330. They were that good,
They were, yes.
right?
I
They
still
were-
think Tony Gwynn was the better hitter.
Yeah, yep,
Because, I mean, both are in the Hall of Fame, but I still think Tony Gwynn was the
yeah.
overall better player between the two of them.
Yeah, because like back in the day, if you look at the top 10 in the batting title, you could have been hitting 299 and been in the top 10.
Exactly.
Right,
Even
and,
today, you'd be hitting 280 something and still be.
Should be in the top 10. But with that era with Gwynn and Boggs, they're up at 335, and the next one would be 315. Good luck catching them. They were that good.
Well, I know some people claim maybe they were because they played in steroid era. People think they may have been taking something,
Yeah.
but there's no. Obviously, you can't prove
I don't
it.
think. Yeah, I don't think they were.
I don't think they were either.
Because
but
look at first of all, look at their bodies. Gwynn was not exactly a fitness freak. You know what I mean? He wasn't that fit. But you know what he had? I think that great hand-eye coordination.
Same
And
thing with Boggs.
Boggs, Babe Ruth, probably Ted Williams. They got that great hand-eye coordination.
Well, I think the thing with Boggs is he won a World Series with the Yankees, and I think a lot of Red
Oh.
Sox fans were a little disappointed about it.
Right, when he was riding the horse. Yeah, he was riding the horse later. And then 1941, the 56-game hitting streak by Joe DiMaggio.
That's
and
never
no one's-
going to be.
no one's-
I don't think anybody. I think the closest one since then is Ricky Henderson had like a 40-something game
Yeah.
hit streak, but I don't think anybody.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever going to break that
That
56 games.
I think Pete Rose got it to 44, but
He would've
56,
been a
good
close
luck
one.
with that. And I bring this up to you, 1956, Mickey Mantle hit the Triple Crown. I learned about this game on Ken Burns' documentary
Yeah,
baseball.
I've seen that.
Game 7 of the 1965 World Series. So it was Game 7. It was the Dodgers at the Twins. So Sandy Koufax curveball wasn't working. So the catcher goes out to the mound and says, "What are we going to do?" Sandy Koufax says, "Blow them away." Rest of the game, fastballs. They win Game 7 on the road.
I heard about that one. Yes.
Yup. And I just found out this recently, just watching some stuff on YouTube. Because when you watch the black and white stuff of Sandy Koufax, I thought he was like 5'10". He was 6'2". He was a basketball player. He was big.
Oh, he was
And he
6'2".
had big hands like Johnny Bench, kind of like Doug Flutie. And then Bob Gibson, they went to the World Series 3 times in the 60s, and they lost. In 68, we were talking about that,
We were
the year of
talking
the
about that,
pitcher.
Yeah, it
lost
was
Game 7.
1 something year, right? Yeah.
1.12
1.12.
ERA. And then you brought this up. This gentleman can really answer some baseball trivia questions. When I said, what year was the Miracle Mets?
69.
69. So in 69, the Mets beat Baltimore. Baltimore went to the World Series in 69, 70, and 71. 69, they got beat by the Miracle Mets.
Yeah.
70, Baltimore beat the early version of the Big Red Machine,
That's right,
Cincinnati.
yeah.
And the 71, the Pirates beat
Pirates won.
Baltimore. So that was impressive,
That was-
3 straight pennants.
Well, they always had some good pitching there. They had I forget what year it was, but they had 3 guys win 20 years one season.
Yep, right,
I forget what year that was.
Yeah. Do you think interleague play was a good idea because it takes away from the purity of the winning the pennant?
I think it was because instead of playing the same teams, because they play 162 games, so instead of playing the same teams all the time,
Makes sense.
it gives the fans, say if you want to, it gives the fans, say like the Pirates play the Yankees one day,
Yeah.
or the Cubs play the Red Sox one day, or
Well, the Mets can
the
play
Mets can play the Orioles or
Yankees.
whoever.
The New
But I
York
think it
teams can
gives-
go at each other. Yeah.
But I think it gives more excitement for the. I think it was more for the fan base. I don't think it
Yeah.
was for the players. I think it's
Yeah.
a chance for teams to play instead of playing the same 8 teams all year long. They get
Yeah.
to play different teams.
No, you're right.
I don't think they should play 19. Like I don't think divisional teams should play with each other 19 times.
Oh, okay.
Granted,
Yeah.
it's good to see the Red Sox and Yankees play all the time, but it's like I don't think they have to have 19 games against the same
Yeah.
teams.
It's not like football. Yeah.
No, but I think it's a good. I think I don't have an interest. I don't have a problem with the interleague play. I think it's a good for the game
Yeah, the interleague play.
because it gives the fans something else to. It gives them a chance to see different players or different teams players
Yeah.
that you never would see except for the World Series.
Now, do you like the way it's set up with the National League, the pitchers hit, and you got the DH in the American? You think it should go one way
No,
or the
I
other,
never.
or leave it like
I
it is?
never liked seeing the pitcher hit because I think they have to focus. Their
Oh, yeah.
main job is to pitch.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen some pitchers who you normally would never hit before get injured and their careers are ruined. Like
Oh,
Jin-Mei Wang is a good example.
Yeah.
He was an ace for the Yankees in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s. One day he was hitting and he got injured and never was the same after that.
Yeah.
But I think it makes more sense to just have. I think I say have a DH in both leagues
Yeah.
because now a guy like David Ortiz, who was never a great fielder, it limits his opportunity
Oh,
of
you're
what
right.
teams to go
Yeah.
to. Well, someone like Edgar Martinez or
Yeah.
Ellis Burks was a DH later in his career.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to just have the pitcher pitch and have a DH where you can say teams can rotate that position.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Well,
probably
yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Eliminating
I think
pitchers
just
hitting.
having, I think because I think it makes more sense to have the pitcher focus on just pitching, and have it gives a chance for say like someone like say like Mookie Betts in like 5-6 years down the line if you can't play
Yeah.
the field anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the Dodgers aren't going to be able to move that contract, so where they're going to play him?
Yeah.
He's not going to ride the bench. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Let me ask you, how did when Albert Pujols signed that big contract with the Angels?
with the Angels, yeah.
How has that been working out?
I mean, he was a better player with the Cardinals.
Right.
I mean, he has some good years with the Angels, but Angels just got out of that contract. He's now
Yep.
with the Dodgers. To me, I never liked the fact you sign one guy to a big contract like that because now you have all this money into one player. What about the rest of the team?
Yep. No, because we were talking about the Pirates because my mom's from Pennsylvania, and we were talking about Roberto Clemente.
Yes.
And just researching, because the Pirates won it in 1960, 1971, and 1979. And Roberto Clemente's kind of famous for that 1971 World
Yeah,
Series, and we'll say Willie Stargell in 79.
79.
But I didn't know that Roberto Clemente played on that famous 1960s Pirates team with the Bill Mazeroski home
Yes,
run. And Willie Stargell played on that 1971. That just shows that's a good
It is a
organization
good, yes, but the problem
back then.
the problem that happens with the Pirates now, and I saw this going up in the '90s, they could never keep their. For some reason, I don't know if it's because of the ownership, but they could never hold on
Right.
to any of their stars. I saw
Yeah.
them either trade them or lose them in free agency
Yep.
all the time.
Yeah, I'm laughing because of that Bobby Bonilla contract. I hear he still gets $1 million a year.
He gets it from the Mets. It's that's not
Oh,
from the Pirates. It's
that's
from
from
the
the
Mets.
Mets. Okay.
The Red Sox had the same thing with Manny Ramirez. They're still paying Manny
Wow.
Ramirez.
Oh, that must be nice. $1 million a year, and
But that's like the worst contract. The Bobby Bonilla contract with the
Yeah,
Mets.
yeah.
I think it's the worst contract that still exists. The men's
Bobby
squad.
Bonilla. They had Barry Bonds. They had Leland, who later on got a championship
He did with the Marlins.
with the Marlins. And then just looking at this, the A's won 3 championships in 72, 73, and 74. Did the Yankees win 3 in a row during the Jeter era?
The Yankees won
Okay.
the World Series in '98, '99, and 2000
Wow.
with Jeter. Jeter
Yep.
was
The captain.
the captain, but the Yankees didn't win in '97. I think they lost to Cleveland that year
Yep.
in the playoffs.
One of the greatest plays in baseball history was when the captain shoveled the ball
Oh
and
yeah, I
caught
still
it.
see that all the time. I remember watching. I was at my dad's house
Yep.
watching that game. Like, I want the A's to win because the
Right.
Yankees were down in the best of 5, 2 games, and then against Oakland. And I forget who hit the ball, but I remember Shane Spencer, who was a utility
Right, oh,
outfielder
yeah.
for the Yankees at the time. he had overthrew the first base. I think Tino Martinez was the first base. He overthrew Tino Martinez, and Jeter
came out of nowhere.
Came from shortstop all the way, cut across halfway the field. Picks the ball, flips the ball to Posada, who tags out.
Yeah.
For some reason, I can't to this day. I'm like, why wouldn't Giambi have slid into home plate?
Yeah.
And of course, Giambi later comes to the Red Sox. Not Jason, but the other one.
The thing was, even if it was a tie, you had to give that to Jeter. It was such a brilliant play.
To me, that's still one of the best plays I've ever seen.
It was.
That I can remember.
Yeah, it was like that play. If it was a tie, you got to give it to Jeter because it was a brilliant play.
I think that play kind of changed the whole series because the Yankees were down 2-0. They were facing elimination.
Yep.
And they came back. They won the next 3. They go to obviously they lost in the World Series that year. Because of a Joe Torre mistake.
Oh, wow, yep.
Because he decides to bring the infield in, and Gonzalez just the blue hit over Jeter, and then the Diamondbacks won the World Series that year.
Yeah, Joe Torre won a batting title.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's impressive. Winning a batting title and then managing a team. And Mr. October, let's bring him up a little. Reggie Jackson won those 3 championships with the A's, won 2 more with the Yankees. But I didn't, that one famous game, he hit 3 home runs off 3 straight pitches off 3 different pitchers.
He did. He was the first one, but I saw 2 other guys hit 3 home runs in the World Series game too. It was Albert Pujols and Pablo Sandoval.
Okay.
3 home runs in the World Series game before too.
And you know Reggie's thing, he would call himself the straw that stirs the drink.
Oh yes, I'm actually surprised when he got inducted to the Hall of Fame. He went in as an athletic and not as a Yankee.
Wow, yeah. Well, he would. Did you ever hear his home run in the All-Star game?
I did. The one that left the Tigers. I think it was Tiger Stadium. I heard about it. I'd seen the highlights of it. I didn't get to see it in person, but I saw the highlights of it.
And speaking of Tiger Stadium, Mickey Mantle hit his 500th home run in Tiger Stadium. Denny McLean, who won 30, he basically served it up for him. Might have been a meaningless game, but the story was, he was like, Mick, where do you want it? And he served it up, 500 home runs to the Mickey Mantle. You know who's, we talked about this too, Blackjack Morris. He won 3 championships. He's a starting pitcher.
Right,
with the 84 Detroit Tigers, with Sparky Anderson and Kirk Gibson was on that team. He won a championship with Kirby Puckett's Twins.
The Twins,
and he won a championship with that Toronto
team, yes.
Yeah, who Dave Winfield got a ring. You know what Steinbrenner used to call him? Mr. May. When he played for the Yankees, because he would have a good average in the spring.
Oh, yes, he would, yes.
And so that felt good that Dave Winfield got a ring, because he probably said to the boss, "Oh, I'm not Mr. May now." Plus, he contributed in that World Series.
He did, yes. I mean, I was maybe 5 years old, so I don't know.
That was a good ball club. So, any moving forward, like in the next 5 years, what teams do you think are going to be right there?
I think the Tigers have a good shot because they're in the middle. I mean, when they get on when Miguel Cabrera's contract is up, he's going to retire, but. They're in the rebuilding mode. I think they're going to be a good team for a long time. I think Baltimore, because obviously they've been bad the last few years, but they're rebuilding. They get some good players coming up. I think the Pirates are going to get back there. Maybe, I think if they can move, if Colorado is able to move cities, maybe they have a shot. But I think what holds Colorado back is the fact they play in Denver. So I think that holds them back because home runs fly to that all the time. They can never get any pitchers to stay there.
They want to go there, right? Why would you want to go?
Because it's like a home run in paradise going there. Who else? I think the Red Sox could win some more World Series. Because they got some, but I think once they build up in the next couple of years, when they build up their farm system again. Because when Dombrowski came in, he traded half their prospects away.
Do you think baseball should have a salary cap like football? Where they can even it out?
I think they should. I mean, I think, to me, I've always said it, that baseball players make way too much money. I mean, especially with like every off season, you see this guy signs a big contract, and a couple of days later, it's like a record-setting contract, and then a few days later, another guy signs a major contract that they top that one. Then all off season long, it goes on where this guy signs this contract. And I think they had to figure out something to do with their contract.
Because
it's too much. To me, to sign a guy for 10, 12 years and pay him millions,
ridiculous.
And Albert Pujols, he's a Hall of Famer, but the last few years he's been kind of washed up.
No, that was ridiculous.
And Mookie Betts, the contract he just signed with Los Angeles State. I mean, I never could figure out why sign a guy. I mean, I can see the guys in his 20s you signed to in his 30s, but to sign a guy after 30 to a long contract when you know they're not going to be that good and towards the end, like Alex Rodriguez, his contract with the Yankees, he wasn't that great towards the end of it.
Yep. What do you think about Ichiro Suzuki?
He's definitely going to be in the Hall of
Oh,
Fame
yeah.
at some point.
Yep.
I
You'd
mean,
think he would, like, he had a great career, but, you know, in a way he was kind of, well, when you're playing Seattle, I mean, a lot of those games are on late. I'm saying, do you think it would have been better for him if he would have played on the East Coast or more
he
relevant
did eventually.
team?
He did. He eventually played with the Yankees, but I think he was washed up at the time he got to the Yankees.
Right.
But I think if he had played on a team, like a bigger team,
Yeah.
say like the Yankees or say the Mets or the Red Sox or whatever team on the East Coast, I think he would have got more recognition
Yeah.
than he did.
Because you look at his numbers, he's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, same thing. The same thing with Ken Griffey Jr. I think
Yep.
if Griffey was not playing in Seattle, playing say more on the East Coast somewhere, I think he would have got more recognition somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because they say that about, like, baseball on the West Coast. A lot of people on the East Coast don't see those games.
they don't because they play. I think if they say they put the game on like 8 o'clock instead of 10
Right,
o'clock,
yep.
I think people would be more inclined to watch it.
Yeah.
Because no one's gonna want to stay up till 10 o'clock. I don't stay up till 10 o'clock to
Yeah.
watch the games.
Well, like, I was living out west for years, and sports is better out west. You know why? Because Monday Night Football starts at 5:30 instead of 8:30 at night. And so that's the one thing about sports out west. It's way better. Like, in other words, Sunday Night Football starts at 8:30. Yeah, most of us got to go to bed at 9.
Yeah, so no one's gonna.
But out west, that game will start at 5:30. He hasn't learned what, and you know, so. But we're just going to wrap this up. And appreciate you coming on the show. Great show. But what about the Red Sox in the next 5 years? What do you see?
I mean, they got some good prospects along the way. It's a matter of where if they're gonna bring them up when they should
Yep.
bring them up, or if they're gonna end up trading them to get. Maybe they're gonna try to move a couple of them because some of them are currently blocked with. Like shortstop is an issue right now
Yep.
because there's no shortstop really. I mean, obviously, Red Sox have one of the top shortstops right now, but he's kind of locked up to a long-term contract right now. So I mean, I think if they could figure out the pitching staff,
Yeah.
because I think that's the weakness for the Red Sox right now. To me, I think they used way too many relief pitchers. I don't like the fact that
Oh, yeah.
baseball has. To me, baseball is more dominant now with relief pitchers. It drives me crazy to see 7 or 8 different pitchers pitching over 9 in a game. Why not just say 6 innings for a start? Now it's like. To me, I miss the days like with Pedro or Randy Johnson was around.
Yeah.
They're throwing 8, 9 inning games, and it's like you don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
You see teams taking their pitcher out like in the 4th inning, 5th inning.
Yeah. You know what I found out when Pedro played with Oro Hershiser with the Dodgers,
Dodgers, yeah.
and they didn't call him up, or they left him in the minor leagues, and Oro Hershiser sent him a note. Oh, you're a big leaguer. You'll be up here. Because I respect Oro Hershiser.
Oh yes.
Oro Hershiser in that championship when they won it, they beat the mighty A's 4-1. He pitched a 2-hitter and had 3 hits.
I read about that
That is
recently.
something.
Yes.
The bulldog, Oro Hershiser. So
I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame though.
he
He
should
never-
be. I mean,
I think it was his career, but I think he's
Yeah.
somebody that was one of the top pitchers of his
yeah, oh yeah,
time,
the
but he never got
bulldog.
into the.
But that was a lot of fun talking baseball. Next time, you know, we'll go back in time a little more. Maybe talk about the Gas House Gang. You knew Murderers Row,
Yes, yeah, the
Yankees,
team,
1927.
27.
But you know, a lot to talk about. But we're going to wrap up this show. The first episode of Talking Baseball. I'm Joe Mahan.
And I'm Steve Kuplast.
We'll see you next time.